rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Wow, well, things have kind of slowed down a little bit in terms of the news cycle for the moment, and that actually gives me a chance to take a bit of a breather because we've had so much happen over the course of the last couple of weeks. It's just mind-blowing and phenomenal, too, in terms of the whole thing. So there we go. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off here with Pops McGroin and Partner. Pops McGroin and Partner will lead us in their rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me, and place your hand over your heart and follow along with Pops and Partner in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
And, of course, I thank Pops and Partner for getting that rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance sent in and played so I could play it on the program. Wow, I'm like just discombobulated. Anyway, if you want to hear your rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself doing it in your style. And, of course, take that audio file, attach it to an email address, attach it to an email and send it to the address, fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And let me send a banana nanner in Rumble back to Buddy Weiser. All right, let's go ahead and also check into tonight's headliner sponsor. Oh, I'm being told to take a drink. I'll get to that in just a minute there, Bam. Just hold on. Let's go into the headliner sponsor tonight, being the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback, a leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Great stocking stuffer. Hint, hint. Take a look at this thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are tear and water resistant. And check out that binding. This is not cheap glue, folks. They stitched it all the way through the leather, and the pages within. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the internal contents will get you your civics badge in Scouts. Also could probably help you to get your civics exam taken care of. I forgot to mention, they have a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects, such that if something does go wrong, you can send it back to the manufacturer, and they will either fix it or replace it for free. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and pick yours up today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offering. And I appreciate the fact that they allow me to be an affiliate. All right. Let's get into the wonderful first segment, always on Saturdays, and learn a little bit more about our historical founding by talking about On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. By the way, this would also be a fantastic book for a patriot, conservative patriot, or even a liberal patriot. Either way, patriots across the globe. It is chock full with information on our historical founding. Take a look at that thickness of that book, man, let me tell you. But we are getting in toward the end of the book with tonight's reading. Tonight is on William Becknell opens the Santa Fe Trail. Every man will fit himself for the trip with a horse, a good rifle, and as much ammunition as the company may think necessary, William Becknell explained in a Missouri Intelligencer ad seeking men to accompany him west. Every man will furnish an equal part of the fitting out for trade and receive an equal part of the product. Ever since Zebulon Pike wandered into Spanish territory during his explorations, Spanish officials had chased American traders out of New Mexico, which was said to be rich in silver, furs, and livestock. But in 1821, Becknell heard reports of Mexican independence from Spain, so he decided to risk a trading expedition. He set out from Franklin, Missouri, with a string of pack mules, and on November 16, 1821, after several weeks of hardships and obstacles occurring almost daily, he arrived to a warm welcome in Santa Fe. When the traders got back to Franklin, they cut open saddlebags full of silver dollars that, clinking on the stone pavement, rolled into the gutter. Soon, other exultant Missouri traders were headed west on the 900-mile Santa Fe Trail, their pack trains loaded with cottons, silks, woolens, hardware, and cutlery. They returned with pelts, hides, and Mexican silver. On the trail, they risked heat, thirst, hostile Indians, raging prairie fires, and storms that could tear wagons apart. While blazing a path across the Cimarron Desert, Becknell himself barely escaped dying of thirst by cutting open a buffalo and drinking the water in its stomach. But the trade was good, and so the traders kept coming. Pioneer families, gold seekers, hunters, and adventurers followed along. For his role in opening the way in the Southwest, William Becknell is remembered as the father of the Santa Fe Trail. And that is tonight's On This Day in American History. You know, pioneers, explorers, people who do things that others say are impossible to do, those are what make up our American history. It's those people who make up our wonderful wonderful and amazing American values, thoughts, dreams, hopes, everything else. It's just amazing. All right, tonight I am drinking out of my Knob Creek. Where's Bonnie? Bonnie would be happy. Anyway, I'm drinking out of my Knob Creek 9-year-old straight Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey right here. So there you go. And yeah, so there we go. All right, let's go ahead and, oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm also drinking it out of my That's What I Do, drink and I know things glass, because that's how I feel tonight. And of course, yes, I have my stones in the bottom of the glass. 3 Chevy has changed up his little moniker that he usually does. He says, it takes whiskey to drink with stones. Okay. He might have already had a drink or two before we even got on the program, but whatever. Anyway, all right. So, a couple more cabinet members have been announced. The Secretary of the VA has been nominated for Doug Collins. Also, too, Doug Burgum has been nominated to Secretary of the Interior. Now, I'm hearing through the grapevine that Trump will be nominating a majority of his economics folks next week. So you'll probably see a bunch of people that come across, and maybe we'll get the left buzzing bees all up in arms about it. But one thing that is for certain is that Trump is also not only looking at the secretary, the cabinet members, he's also looking at his what would these guys? These are the non-cabinet kind of high-level appointments. One was already announced, Mike Huckabee for ambassador to Israel, which the left really wasn't too happy with. And then, of course, there was Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff for policy. Dan Scavino, it is Scavino. Dan Scavino is the deputy chief of staff. And he's had a couple other people kind of fill in, but the big one, I think, most recently is White House press secretary is being given to Carolyn Leavitt, or Leavitt, however it's pronounced. Anyway, she supposedly has a reputation for tearing up leftists, so this ought to be fun. Maybe on the level, I don't know, maybe on the level of Kayleigh McEnany? I don't know. We'll just have to kind of see, but yeah, this ought to be fun, for sure. And of course, we already heard about Tom Horman as the border czar. He's still making waves. You had the Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk appointment or recommendation appointments or whatever you want to call it to the, quote, Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, D-O-G-E. And so, yeah, there's that. There's a few others in here, but they haven't really rattled the left's cage, so I'm really not all that interested. You can check them out. They're all over the place. I'm sure you can find them. And if nothing else, the Epic Times has a good piece on it. Now, it is the premium scenario, but anyway. Oh, I guess I had, according to David Cheney on Facebook, welcome to the program. I haven't seen your name pop in before. So I guess Carolyn Leavitt is how it's pronounced. Carolyn Leavitt. Anyway, this ought to be fun. I mean, realistically, whoever gets in as White House press secretary has got to do better than frickin' Psaki and you know, Sideshow Bob, Karine Jean-Pierre. Just about anybody can do better than those two, especially Karine Jean-Pierre. She has like no clue. Thank God she's getting out of there. The toilet bowl brush, you know. Anyway, her hair just reminds me of a toilet brush. toilet bowl brush, or Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons. Either one. I don't really care. It's one or the other. So anyway, yeah. All right. Well, it seems that, the leftists have this, like, desire to go and add and take on and do all this lawfare. And occasionally they got, they essentially get caught in their own little trap or whatever. In this particular case, this first story that I have for tonight coming out of the Daily Caller is that they may have shot themselves in the foot, meaning the eco-activists in this case may have shot themselves in the foot. Well, thank you, David. I do appreciate that. David says, I'm usually a silent viewer. I enjoy your content. Love the show. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Because this show is for you guys. You guys have got to enjoy it. Otherwise, you won't view it. And if you don't view it, I'm talking into the ethosphere of nothingness, which is where all the leftists are going, by the way. They're all jumping off of X, and they're taking off and going off to this thing called blue sky. They just cannot live in the world of truth and reality, folks. They've got to go. They've got to go run off to their echo chambers. And, yeah, it's just kind of fun. But anyway. All right. So this article in the Daily Caller, eco-activists may have inadvertently gutted one of their favorite regulatory systems. So apparently these eco-activists have sued the federal government to stop activity that they did not like, but they ended up with a bombshell ruling on Tuesday in a case from a federal appeals court that may end up weakening the regulatory system that has served them for years. So the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit ruled in the case Marin Audubon Society versus the Federal Aviation Authority, which was the FAA, that the White House Council on Environmental Quality does not have the legal authority to issue the National Environmental Policy Act rules. So environmentalists have been using NEPA as an avenue of legal attack against disfavored infrastructure projects, particularly oil and gas related developments, for years. With long delays pushing back timelines, driving up costs for builders, even when the challenges themselves sometimes fail. Now, I know that they do things like this around here. There is a particular group that for years activated and operated where if there was any kind of a construction permit sign, because what we have to do around here is when you're getting ready to build, you have to put up a notice of application for the building permit. When that notice of application goes up, they by law have to write in what's going on, who's doing it, etc., a whole bunch of details. And these people go and if it causes problems for something that they believe in, like let's say the building is being done too close to what they think is a wetland, not what is legally, defined as a wetland, for an example, they will go and cause all kinds of havoc and lawfare. They had, lawyers on retainer who would continually just stick their noses into all kinds of stuff. And it became a bit of a hassle for anybody to try and build anything on our particular island. But anyway, as I was saying back in the piece, this is essentially a former President Richard Nixon signed NEPA into law in 1970, and it has stood as a linchpin of the environmental regulatory regime ever since. The ruling essentially signals to the what was it again? Oh yeah, the Council on Environmental Quality that, quote, the rulemaking authority the agency has been relying on for almost 50 years does not exist, according to the Yale Journal on Regulation. Though the 3-judge panel that issued the ruling may still be overruled by the Supreme Court or on appeal, according to Mike Cantanzaro, who served as the associate policy director for the Bush White House CEQ. So here's the thing, and I honestly, I think that you're going to find that this particular Supreme Court, the way that it's made up right now, is sympathetic to the idea that regulations have been overbearing and essentially, I'm trying to think of a word and I had it on the tip of my tongue there for a second, but it's overburdening the American public because of all of the additional bureaucracy that is running around. I mean, you saw that in the overturning of what they called the Chevron deference. That got overturned. You've seen that in terms of things like when OSHA tried to put on a vaccine mandate, the Biden administration tried to use OSHA to put on a vaccine mandate back in COVID, and the Daily Wire went ahead and challenged that and won. There's all kinds of indications that the Supreme Court is essentially tired, or at least the 6-3 quote unquote majority is a little tired of the fact that the government overreach and bureaucracy has essentially increased so much that, that now we're no longer necessarily a constitutional republic in the strictest sense. So, the thing about it is, according to Cantanzaro, is that this case, this is a quote to the Daily Caller, this case definitively has called out a fundamental and to some unfortunate fact about NEPA. In many aspects, it is an administratively and unlawfully created juggernaut, large parts of which Congress never authorized. Now, keep in mind, that's the whole piece, okay? That's the whole piece, is that the Congress is the one, according to the Constitution, Congress is the one that creates all these laws. So whenever you have a regulatory body that just decides to interpret whatever powers that Congress is supposed to, or supposedly have given them, that's not the way our government is supposed to work. Congress is supposed to make the laws, and if Congress doesn't make a law proper, then they need to rewrite the law in order to make sure that everything is spelled out in clear and for clarity for the executive branch to actually do its enforcement of those laws. And that's part of the problem, is that our Congress, and I'm talking about both sides. I'm not talking about, Democrats or Republicans. I'm not blaming either one of them necessarily. I'm blaming them both as a whole. They have tended to back away from their constitutionally instructed and obligated duties. And they seem to write these broad brush strokes and just hand it off to some regulatory agency and just say, here, interpret this. And that's, how it's been happening for several decades now. This is sort of the reason why we've gotten into the position that we are in, is that the transition of power, especially in the eyes of the public, and this is part of the reason why education on the Constitution is so important, is the fact that they have indoctrinated, for lack of a better term, the general public to believe that the president has all these powers. The president literally, in the ranking order, if we really wanted to get to a point where we wanted to talk about, which branch is truly the most powerful, I mean, they're co-equal branches. However, in terms of a ranking of power and an effect on the American people, Congress is at the top of the heap. Then the president is just slightly below and to the right or left, depending upon what you want to go, in terms of all that. And then the Supreme Court is down slightly below the presidency, to the right or to the left, in terms of all that. Congress is the one that is supposed to make the laws. And of course, all of this is wrapped around the idea that the Constitution has guardrails that prevents Congress from making laws. If Congress can't make the law, the executive has no law to try and enforce. And so this is part of the reason why, you know, we as the American people over the course of the last, you know, several decades have lost our way in the application of the Constitution of the United States. All right. So this essentially is a good thing. It's a good thing because it's basically taking the perceived power out of the hands of a bureaucracy that wasn't even really created by the Congress, which again, that's another example of the expansion and overloading of the bureaucracy that Donald Trump was elected to go in and clean up. But the whole idea is that it takes the power away from these bureaucracies, puts them back into the hands of the representatives of the people, back in terms of Congress. And that is literally a good thing, because that brings us back within constitutional boundaries, should this case continue to go the way that it's been set up so far. All right. So, yeah. So, yeah, this, now, keep in mind, could get overturned. Well, we could eventually see it end up in front of the Supreme Court, too. But I have a feeling, given the propensity of the Supreme Court to be somewhat against government overreach, this, chances are, will stay the way that it is, even if the situation gets into the Supreme Court. I think it will be upheld as far as that goes. All right. Do you feel it? Do you feel the rebellion in your blood? I'm not talking about patriotic rebellion that it just had a massive demonstration of, okay? I'm talking about the Democrats. The Democrats have now vowed, both governors and Congress members have now vowed to form a quote-unquote shadow government. This in red state. As we expected, the upcoming sequel, Trump 2, The Return of the Killer Trump, is shaping up to be a humdinger. So, apparently, there is a gentleman, and let me just see here who this guy is. The speaker in the video that you're about to hear and see is a North Carolina Democrat representative, Wiley Nickel, who got essentially redistricted out of his job, and so he hasn't sought re-election. Although there is a suggestion that he might try to go for the Senate in 2026. But let's take a listen to what he is discussing with regards to this.
If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general, arguing against replacing our independent prosecutors with Trump loyalists. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as shadow education secretary to loudly defend public education in the United States. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks, as shadow secretary of state, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad. Senator Michael Bennet as Shadow Treasury Secretary, and Congresswoman Susan DelBene as Shadow Commerce Secretary could help ensure the middle class and small businesses have a voice in government and call out Trump's proposed tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. As Shadow Defense Secretary, Congressman Adam Smith, a great representative for the people of Washington and not a Fox News host, could counter Trump's threat to use military force against his political opponents and work to ensure that the Department of Defense stays loyal to the Constitution and not some wannabe dictator. And Senator Tammy Duckworth could argue against cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs that would delay the benefits and care our service members have so rightly earned. If Trump hands over the EPA to big oil ally Lee Zeldin, we could see Congresswoman Kathy Castor pushing back for environmental protection and conservation to protect the air we breathe and the water we drink. And if Trump pushes to ban abortion nationwide, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro could step in as Shadow Secretary of Health and Human Services to defend women's right to choose and argue against the gutting of Medicare by Trump and his cronies. Mr. Speaker, new times require new solutions. The shadow cabinet isn't just about opposing extreme MAGA attacks on our government. It's also about making clear what we stand for, not just what we're against.
Yeah, except for all of that is, doesn't that sound treasonous to you? Doesn't that sound a bit like anti-democracy? I honestly thought that the Democrats, no, I'm just kidding. I can't even keep a straight face. These bastards, all they want to do is they just want to tear down the government. That's it. If I don't get my way, I'm going to lay here kicking and screaming like a freaking 6-year-old who hasn't been disciplined for any of its life and kicking and screaming in the aisleway. You know what my mom did to me whenever I did that? If I started throwing a temper tantrum, she walked the F away and just ignored the fact that I was doing it. She walked out of my sight, went completely out of my sight, just kept on going with whatever it was that we were at this public place to do. It didn't matter whether it was a freaking convenience store, shopping mall, grocery store. Didn't make a difference. She walked away. Let me tell you, that only happened like once or twice, and I quit. Well, guess what? These little bastards, they need that kind of tough love because they need to understand that talk like this is exactly why they ended up in the position that they're in, which is essentially having to sit on the sidelines and see how government is supposed to be run. These people literally are, well, like I said, they're not going to go quietly, folks. They really aren't. They're looking to, keep going on this. Now, keep in mind, though, that's talking about Congress. Those in Congress are looking to try and stop this. Well, Democrat governors are apparently trying to do this, too. By the way, both of these clips are hat tipped to Amuse on X because, they're great right-wing or conservative. I don't like calling them right-wing because, right-wing just puts in such a negative connotation. They're a conservative X account that everyone should follow, sort of like some of the other X accounts that I've talked about on this program. But take a listen to this. This is, oh my gosh, this is just absolutely horrible in terms of this clip comes from Zero Hedge. So, wait. Oh, I thought it was a video. My bad. So anyway, let's go to Zero Hedge and let's get Zero Hedge's set up here. Let's see if this is, nope, that's just a picture. God dang it. Anyway, what is going on here is Pritzker and this is Colorado Governor Jared Polis. They are talking about refusing to do anything that the Donald Trump regime, we can call it that, the Donald Trump regime wants to bring into the party. And so, yeah, this is just, this is bad. This is just bad. So the governors, here it is right here. They appear to be establishing what is considered to be an interstate compact. The governors of Illinois and Colorado, both Democrats, have announced the formation of a new alliance to resist President-elect Donald Trump's policies just weeks before he is set to assume office. The alliance, named Governors Safeguarding Democracy, GSD, which also stands for German Shepherd Dog, by the way. Anyway, is being billed as a nonpartisan coalition of governors who will work together to prevent authoritarianism and the undermining of democratic institutions, including executive agencies, elections, and state courts, according to a November 13th statement that was put out announcing the group, which, by the way, take a look at this. There is a website. Let me go ahead and pop this open. There appears to be a website. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, let's just go. They obviously don't care about, they obviously don't care about privacy and security, which is really, doesn't really surprise me any. Through the group, governors will leverage their unique legislative, budgetary, executive, and administrative powers to deliver results for the American people, according to that statement. The alliance will also develop playbooks to enable governors and their teams to anticipate and swiftly respond to emerging threats, according to the statement. The group did not specify what those threats were. So, yeah. These people they're starting to essentially do exactly what they have been claiming that Donald Trump has been doing, that Donald Trump did on January 6th. They are essentially organizing a shadow government in direct violation of the democracy that their elected representatives of the people. The will of the people, they are deciding to go against all of that. Yeah. Seriously, people, I am so glad. Thank you, all of you who voted for Trump. Thank all of you who voted down ballot for all of the Republicans. Could you just imagine what this country would look like under these types of people's control? These morons' control? It boggles my mind that anybody could go and vote Democrat, because Democrats of today, they are the antithesis to democracy. They talk about saving democracy, yet they advocate totalitarianism. They talk about saving the public from a totalitarian who was never a totalitarian in his first term. He walked away January 20th, okay, at noon, like he was prescribed to do, according to the Constitution, without fanfare, without any kind of, military or legal interception or any kind of, I can't even think of the word. I'm all freaking screwed up. But anyway, the point being is these people are doing the exact thing that they claim that Donald Trump is going to do. This is just absolutely horrible. Okay? This is absolutely horrible. Now, all of that being said, okay, they are also trying to come up with, because one of the biggest things that Donald Trump ran on, well, thank you, military intervention. See, I'm telling you, my Whiskey Warrior P1 listeners, all of you out there, you're the smartest listening audience in the entire ethosphere. So anyway, because Donald Trump ran on this idea of deportation, okay, is essentially that they're trying to set up to draw plans to refuse to enforce those immigration laws under Trump. Don't believe me? Here it is. This is in Red State. There's a report going around that Democrats are already doing this. Democrats in deep blue states are already drawing up plans to thwart President-elect Donald Trump's attempts to fix illegal immigration in America. The plan is simply to refuse to enforce the law, according to a New York Times report published on Saturday. The Times notes that the Resistance Party is seeking to pivot away from silly protests involving pink knit caps and homemade signs, and instead will essentially tune out the new president when he enters the Oval Office. They write, as they face this tough political landscape, Democratic officials, activists, and ambitious politicians are seeking to build their second wave of opposition to Mr. Trump from the places that they still control, deep blue states. In these liberal enclaves, the last bastions of liberalism, and that's not true, it's leftism, left behind in a red wave election that wholly rejected their policies, prominent Democrat officials are planning to ignore various federal laws or codify new ones into their own state laws. Democrats envision flexing their power in these states to partly block the Trump administration's policies, for example, by refusing to enforce immigration laws, and to push forward their vision of governance by passing state laws enshrining things like abortion rights. Okay, that's their right to do so anyway. Funding paid leave and putting in place a laundry list of other priorities, writes the Times. Folks, they're basically planning, for the most part, with the exception of the immigration rule, okay, they're planning on doing things that is their purview anyway. These people obviously do not understand the Constitution. They don't read it. They don't get it. They don't understand it. All you have to do is open up the Constitution and look for things like funding paid leave. That's not in it. Abortion. That's not in it. And along the lines of other party priorities that they've been trying to force down through the federal government's gullet, none of that's in there. It's not the responsibility of the federal government. I have been saying for many, many years now, even health care is not a responsibility of the federal government. It's just not there. And if John Roberts had been doing his job correctly as the Chief Justice, rather than issuing that very narrow opinion on the ACA, it should have been overturned immediately by basically saying, yeah, this is not a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. 10th Amendment applies. Send it to the states. That should be the response, honestly, on many of the issues and many of the things that these Democrat morons have been pushing all this time. Well, anyway, so looking at this, deep blue states are already sanctuaries for illegal immigrants, which by definition means they are already ignoring immigration law to the detriment of their citizens. I know, I live in one. Okay. But seeing the Times put it down in print is something of an admission that these Democrat cesspools champion lawlessness, writing opposing legislation to counter federal immigration law and defying the sovereignty of this great nation. This desire to break free from law-abiding states to establish independent laws and protect institutions of criminality hasn't been seen since the Civil War. The report reads that the preparations were largely kept quiet to avoid projecting public doubts about the Democrats' ability to win the election. And the Times notes that these new resistance plans have been in the works since before the election. Essentially a contingency effort in case Trump won. Well, I've got a question of the week on some of this, by the way, coming up. And so I don't want to go too deep into the immigration portion of this whole thing, but this just shows you and demonstrates to you, folks, we made our correct decision on November 5th. We did, honestly. We made the correct decision by going over and voting in the Republicans in a landslide victory, Donald Trump. That's what we did. We did it. Patriots across this country decided that they have had enough with this organization, with this regime, this lawless, I do say lawless regime. Okay. And they're done with it. The American people are done with it. And this is exactly why. It's actions like this that get taken. You know, my stepfather told me a long time ago, he said, actions speak louder than words. Somebody can sit there and tell you that they are going to do all these wonderful things for you, but if it never comes to fruition, you can't trust that individual anymore. And that's exactly what's happened with these moron Democrats. That is exactly what has happened with them. They have shown us through their actions that they are anti-American, totalitarianist, loving morons. They have no idea what's in the Constitution. They don't care, even if they did know. And that's why I'm telling you, folks, this is not over with yet. This whole thing, I mean, we're in a lull right now. We haven't hit January 20th and the inauguration at this point. We are going to have some serious challenges right here. Oh, and if you don't think, I mean, if you know, obviously Pritzker seems to be one of the more outspoken ones, as well as some of the other ones that have been on the television shows and stuff like that. Well, here's an example of Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey on election night, because the ticker is showing the election night results. So here you go. Just take a listen.
If the Trump administration requests it, would the Massachusetts State Police assist in mass deportations?
No, absolutely not. But, you know, let me say this. I do think it's important that we all recognize that there's going to be a lot of pressure on states and state officials. And I can assure you, we're going to work really hard to deliver. Some realities also need to be, noted, and that is in 2016, we had a very different situation in the courts. And while I'm sure there may be litigation ahead, there's a lot of other ways that people are going to act and need to act for the sake of their states and their residents. There's regulatory authority and executive powers and the like. There's legislation also within our states. So I think that the key here is that every tool in the toolbox has got to be used to protect our citizens, to protect our residents, and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law as a basic principle, right?
So you notice how she said that. She was very careful to separate out citizens and residents. They have absolutely no qualms, and they don't seem to care about illegal aliens, whether or not they're going to be, protected. Well, they're not citizens. They're not supposed to be here in the first damn place anyway. They should have been deported the minute that they came out, but no. What ended up happening? Well, we ended up getting flooded with them. New York Governor Kathy Hochul initiated what's called the Empire State Freedom Initiative to combat policy threats from the Trump administration, including on immigration issues. Okay. She made the announcement at a bizarre press conference, which she and Letitia James, who is the attorney general up there, vowed to be warriors to fight to stop what the American people had just voted for. And that's the key, folks, what the American people had just voted for. Here it is. Take a listen.
President-elect Trump needs to repeal his elimination of the state and local tax deduction. He also needs to support our ongoing efforts to support our transit, support the Gateway Tunnel, Second Avenue Subway, and fund major critical infrastructure, again, particularly the MTA. And also to back our critical economic development projects, such as those funded by the CHIPS and Science Act, which is intended to bring manufacturing back home from China and South Asia and create thousands of jobs in our state, as is occurring with Micron. And I will work with him or anybody, regardless of party, on these kind of efforts that I know will benefit the state of New York. However, if you try to harm New Yorkers or roll back their rights, I will fight you every step of the way. New Yorkers are resilient. We fought the first time around and we'll fight again. Now, I know many of you woke up today feeling drained and perhaps demoralized, yet I know we will find tremendous reserves of untapped energy within ourselves. I reflect on what football coach Vince Lombardi once said. It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up.
Oh God, she couldn't even say it. Holy crap. All right. Well, first of all, she needs to understand that legally an illegal alien has no protections under the Constitution. They don't. They're not a U.S. citizen. And so therefore they don't have the protections. Now, residents, like legal residents from other places, okay, they do get afforded some protections under the Constitution, but not everything. These people are nuts. They are crazy. They came here illegally. That's the other thing. I love how they all talk about, oh, no, illegal migrants. No, they're not criminals. Hello, they were criminals the minute that they stepped across the freaking border and entered the country illegally. Every single one of them, regardless of whether they're a man, a woman, a child, coyote, whatever. I mean, they're illegal. They've broken the law to get here. And that's the ridiculous part about all of this conversation, about this entire scenario. Ugh, folks, I'm telling you, there's just no, there's no way that these people cannot be serious. But we definitely can't forget Governor Gavin Newsom, Oil Can Henry himself. He had a double down on stupid, according to Red State editor Jennifer Van Leer, where he had a proclamation convening a special session for the California legislature to get in. So the special session apparently is going to begin December 2nd. When the new California lawmakers get sworn in, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody knows this, but California is still counting. I don't know how the hell they can still be counting, but they're still counting, folks. They are. They're still counting. This is just ridiculous. And it's not just them. I mean, like I said, J.B. Pritzker, one of the first ones. He's like, I want you to remind... he threatens President Trump on illegal aliens. I want to remind you that a happy warrior is a warrior. You come from my people. You come through me. Yeah, okay. Well, they would have a hard time going through you, buddy, because you're about as big as a freaking lunar eclipse there. You're like Chris Christie, just huge. Anyway, so, yeah. These people are planning on fighting every step of the way. And we need to be prepared for all of that. We need to understand that this is what we're going to have to face, especially over the next 2 years, because keep in mind, midterm elections are going to be coming up. So if you really want to continue the work that is going to be occurring over the course of the next 2 years, making America great again, we have got to get out the vote on that midterm election and get rid of some of these people who literally are dead weight in the boat. Okay? Now, we still have some issues and challenges, of course, that we're going to have to deal with over the course of the next couple of months. One of them being immigration still is an issue. Okay? And according to Breitbart, there's still potentially thousands of immigrants that are entering Mexico using the CBP-1 app in order to try and get into America. They're working their way through Mexico. They continue to enter Mexico through its southern border as they work to get travel permits to make their journey to the U.S. border in the hopes of getting asylum. And all of this is happening with the idea that, of course, the Trump administration is getting into office. So hundreds of migrants, according to the piece here, hundreds of migrants line up daily in, I'm going to mincemeat this, Tapachula, Chiapas, outside the local office of the National Migration Institute. There, they wait for their turn to present their paperwork before an agent to get a travel permit that allows them to move freely through Mexico for a certain period. Now, the new president of Mexico, by the way, she obviously doesn't support Donald Trump and his policies because she has already made claims that if America starts deporting Mexicans back to Mexico, that they're going to deport the Americans that are in Mexico back to America. So, you know what? No offense, but hey, whatever. I don't. The thing that everybody is getting so uptight about is they keep thinking that this is going to be some kind of a deal where all of a sudden we're going to take legal immigrants in this country and just start deporting them. And that's not the case at all. Now, is it possible that there are few people are going to get caught up in the net? Absolutely. It is entirely possible. But the fact is that isn't the intent. That isn't the intent of this entire situation. It is to get the illegal aliens back across our borders because they came here illegally. Now, once they go back across the borders, you want to enter into our country? Sure, go right ahead. Do it the legal way. We're going to enforce our borders, folks, because without borders, we don't have a country anymore. So anyway, here's just some pictures that I'm kind of scrolling on the screen of all these people who are starting to line up. You can see on the posters and the banners in these pictures that migrants need to have a previously confirmed CBP-1 appointment, provide ID, so on and so forth. This is all long lines and wait times, according to the piece here, have pushed thousands of migrants into joining one of the various caravans that are making their way through southern Mexico to reach Mexico City. From there, they are expected to find multiple modes of transportation to the northern border. As Breitbart Texas reported, contrary to the U.S. News reports, caravans have not disbanded, but continue to make their way across the country. So part of the reason why they're doing this, by the way, is because of things like this report that came out of Town Hall. Human smugglers have been told to rush to the border before Trump takes office. Folks, the Customs and Border Patrol are going to have their hands full for the next roughly 2 months going into January. They are going to be overloaded like nobody's business because now that Donald Trump is taking office, everybody knows that they are going to have thousands upon thousands showing up. And do you think the Biden administration, run by Harris, because Harris is the border czar, do you think they're going to care about this? They're not. They're not going to do anything about this. They're going to just allow it to happen. So here in the piece, according to the Washington Street Journal, don't know what that is, but a Washington Street Journal, human smugglers are warning illegal immigrants, let's classify them properly, illegal aliens, across the Panama and Colombia border to hoof it to the border before January, when Trump gets the keys back to the White House, as they fear the president-elect will dismantle pathways for entry into the U.S. They're right. He's going to He's going to do what he promised he is going to do. But anyway, a Mexican immigrant advocate who who helps to organize caravans in Tapachula, Luis Villagarden, told the Wall, I think it's supposed to be the Wall Street Journal, not Washington Street Journal. But anyway, the Washington Street Journal, there's 4 WhatsApp groups in which hundreds of migrants coordinated their departure on U.S. election day. The same person said that as soon as Trump won the election, messages for spreading fear began to ignite like wildfire across among illegal aliens hoping to enter the U.S., despite concerns that once Trump gets into office, they will be deported. Mass groups of illegal aliens are still risking the trek across the border, while Vice President Kamala Harris, the border czar, is absent from her job. Human smugglers are apparently, reportedly, instructing illegal aliens to cross into areas at the border where state troopers don't have the authority to make arrests. Texas DPS Lieutenant Chris Olivares told the New York Post that immigrants aren't as concerned with engaging with Border Patrol agents because they know the agents will follow the Biden-Harris administration's policies and would more than likely get released into the U.S., instructing them to appear in immigration court with a date years into the future. Yeah. It's, folks, we still have 2 months of this. We still have 2 months of this crap, realistically, okay? I mean, it's coming. Trust me, it is coming. The correction and selection of the correction is coming. It's on its way, people. Here's one positive sign, by the way, in terms of the entire situation when it deals with immigration. I know a lot of MAGA folks and conservatives across the U.S., they all love this guy. But apparently, according to Red State, Rand Paul has been selected to chair the Senate Homeland Security Committee. And he is definitely at the top of his list going to put Remain in Mexico back on the forefront of the agenda. And so here's a video of him talking about that. At least I think it's a video. Let me see if it's a picture or a video. Yeah, that's a picture. All right. So he has stated that for the health of our republic, where's the full statement? Here it is. For the health of our republic, Congress must stand up once again in its constitutional role. This committee's mission of oversight and investigations is critical to Congress reasserting itself. This poster, Eric Doherty, says this is an important Senate committee. The AP reports that it has broad jurisdiction over governmental operations, including the Department of Homeland Security. Now, of course, his appointment or his placement on that committee becomes official in January, according to all that. So Remain in Mexico should be one of the first things done. This is back to the Red State piece. But it sure shouldn't be the last. The current mess at our southern border is unacceptable. And if certain prominent figures in the opposition are still insisting that it's the federal government's job to secure the border, it is, in fact, then the new GOP majority should take the ball and run with it, which appears exactly to be what Rand Paul is intending to do. So, yeah, millions upon millions have crossed into the United States illegally. Current estimates are running somewhere between 11 to 15 million, folks. So, yeah. And they come across the border, they get maybe stopped or perfunctory interview, something. They get handed a court date that could happen anywhere up until like 10, 12 years in the future. So they basically are able to run around this country for 10 to 12 years without even appearing for a court date. This is not the way things are supposed to go. They're supposed to claim amnesty, give a specific reason as to why they need it, and then go through the process of gaining entry into the country. We've moved away in terms of our attention to this kind of thing. We've moved away from it, but realistically, all of this is still here, people. It hasn't changed. It hasn't stopped. It's still here. And we need to make sure that we keep this going. We need to keep the energy that we have gained through the election. We need to keep it going. We need to do it so that we can save this country from all of these things that are going on with all of this. I mean, this is, yeah. This is really bad. I mean, J.B. Pritzker was on with Joy Reid, and he supposedly spouted off a whole bunch of stuff about Trump's deportation plans, which, again, keep in mind, we got that bulldog. He even looks like a bulldog. Have you ever seen him? He looks like a bulldog, and he acts like one, too. It's pretty incredible, to be honest with you. Well, one thing that definitely has happened with Donald Trump's election is things over in the Middle East and over in Eastern Europe seem to be kind of, shall we say, softening. For an example, I saw an article where Vladimir Zelensky gave a statement where he said that the war versus Russia was going to come to a close fairly soon. Now, he's not talking about like surrendering or anything else. What he was referring to was the fact that Donald Trump getting into office is going to put pressure on both sides, to be honest with you, to end the war. The other thing, too, that is a pleasant sight is that Israel will likely have whatever leash, restraint, cage, whatever the Biden administration has put over it in order to go and finish the job that it basically has to do in Gaza to take care of Hamas and then dealing with Hezbollah as well. Not only that, but there's also the whole dealing with Iran, who is funding the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas, all three. Well, this Axios piece indicates that the potentiality of Israel being unleashed in the near future has given them, well, a little new lease on life. Here in Axios. Scoop. Israel destroyed active nuclear weapons research facility in Iran, some officials say. So the Israeli attack in Iran in late October actually destroyed an active top secret nuclear weapons research facility in Parchin, according to 3 separate U.S. officials. One current Israeli official and one former Israeli official. So now, why does all this matter? So keep in mind, okay, I've talked about this in the past. Iran is enriching uranium right now at a higher level than what the original nuclear agreement allowed. They push the boundaries all the time, and they've been handed all of this money through the Biden administration and the Obama administration before them. Donald Trump actually hemmed them in and had them on the ropes. And the Biden administration came in, released or forgot to enforce the sanctions that were on on the oil sales. And so Iran started rolling in that dough again. And so that's why they were able to help fund Hamas's October 7th attack against the Israelis. So why does this kind of matter? Well, the strike, which targeted a site previously reported to be inactive, significantly damaged Iran's effort over the past year to resume nuclear weapons research, Israeli and U.S. officials said. One Israeli official, former Israeli official, briefed on the strike, said it destroyed sophisticated equipment used to design the plastic explosives that surround the uranium in a nuclear device and are needed in order to detonate the nuclear device. Iran has denied that it is pursuing nuclear weapons. Yeah. Do we really believe them? No. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said in a statement last week that Iran is not after nuclear weapons, period. There's only one problem with that. You guys are enriching uranium far beyond what is needed for things like nuclear power. So what the hell are you doing with it? If you've gone beyond what is needed to basically power your country, what the hell is the point? Anyway, the Iranian mission to the UN declined to comment. They were asked by Axios. And of course, the incoming Trump administration is going to include several key national security and foreign policy officials who are hawkish on Iran, which could lead to increased U.S. pressure on the Islamic Republic. Yeah. So apparently one of the targets of the Israeli strike that happened on October 25th was a Taliban 2 facility in the Parchin military complex, which is about 20 miles southeast of Tehran. The facility was part of the Iranian Ahmad nuclear weapons program until Iran halted its nuclear weapons program military nuclear weapons program in 2003. It was used for testing explosives needed to set off a nuclear device, according to the Institute for Science and International Security. High-resolution satellite imagery acquired by the Institute after the Israeli strike showed the building was completely destroyed. Now, let's take a look here and see if this... I'm going to take a quick look, see if this is actually the imagery. It's a link, but let's just see. Yep, okay. So here you go. This is the buildings that you can see here that were destroyed as a part of the attack. And there you can see those were the buildings that were targeted for it. And then, of course, going back, just to flip back to that image, the destroyed buildings that were there. Yeah, if you guys are listening on the audio portion of the program, you really got to take a look at some of the video that I put out. This is some stuff. So anyway, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account and watch the video. Anyway. So, Iran seriously is, I mean, does anybody recall Stuxnet for an example? If you think the Israelis don't know what's going on over there in Iran, yeah, you have got another think coming. All right. Well, apparently there is movements afoot to get rid of the left's idea of wokeness in the government in anticipation of Trump returning. Now, I didn't put this in the show description, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it anyway. So here, also in red state, the wokeness purge has already begun. So President-elect Donald Trump hasn't even taken office yet, but Republicans are reportedly already starting to effort to purge wokeness from the federal government. And all you have to do is take a look at all of his picks that he has done so far for his cabinet picks. You can tell this is a direction, not the direction, but a direction that he is looking to continue to Several conservative groups are currently in a campaign to identify federal employees who are partisan or possibly resistant to enacting Trump's agenda, according to a CNN report. These groups include the Heritage Foundation Oversight Project and the American Accountability Foundation. Organizations have flooded federal agencies with tens of thousands of Freedom of Information Act requests demanding access to emails, personnel records, and other communications between government employees. The effort is part of a comprehensive strategy to lay the groundwork for mass firings of civil servants under Trump's Schedule F executive order that was issued in 2020 that was later revoked under President Joe Biden. Now, I understand that Trump is planning on reinstating that Schedule F. So these firings very well could happen, which honestly, again, this is the whole point, is to get rid of the massive amount of bureaucracy that apparently is beholden to one particular party over another, rather than just doing the job and being essentially apolitical in their professional lives. So the measure would, which is what they're talking about as Schedule F, the measure would reclassify certain federal positions that are involved in policy making, policy determining, or policy advocating roles in a way that would exempt them from typical civil service protections. This would make it easier for the president to fire these individuals. Well, that's what Schedule F is. I mean, makes sense. You have your whole cabinet that goes. I mean, there's nobody that's left over from the cabinet. I mean, seriously. You know, what the heck? Anyway, Mike Howell, who is an executive director for the Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project, told CNN that his organization has submitted around 65,000 requests to federal agencies under the FOIA. The report continued. The Department of Transportation, for example, has received about 1,600 FOIA requests through the first 9 months of 2024, and about 1,075 came from 3 people, all tied to the Heritage Foundation Oversight Project, according to a CNN review of the agency's FOIA logs. So, I mean, essentially what's happening here, folks, is that we actually have an entire group of individuals who are trying to make America great again. It's not just certain individuals. It is entire organizations that are attempting to get rid of and overthrow the chains of bureaucracy and unconstitutional oppression from these executive organizations that have not been given legislative power over us. And they won't. They're part of the executive branch. They are to enforce laws, not to create laws. That's Congress's job. That's the separation of powers within the Constitution as to why we have these things that are going on. Okay, so let's see. So the other organization, the American Accountability Foundation, recently published the names of 60 individuals in the Homeland Security Department who they believe might try to hamper the president-elect's agenda, according to CNN. The list includes senior-level employees who donated to Democratic causes and candidates, previously worked for groups that advocate for more liberal immigration policies, or posted on social media about their efforts to assist immigrants who arrived in the U.S. seeking legal status. The initiative also targets DEI programs. That's diversity, equity, inclusion, for those that are not aware of acronyms, and those involved in promoting them in the federal government. They should be. They should be. Okay? They should be. That's just the way it is. I mean, whatever. Anyway. So positive moves, folks, positive moves, but we definitely have to make sure that we keep our eyes open and our eyes peeled for at least the next 2 months, if not longer, for all of this. All right, so let's get on, and I'm stopping a little early because this next question is kind of complicated, to be honest with you. So let's go ahead and get on to the question of the week. And today's question of the week comes from the wonderful, the superior, the all-wise Buddy Weiser over on Rumble. Buddy writes, "Greetings to you, my friend, and I hope this question finds you well with a stout spirit." Yeah, again, I'm drinking the non Greek. Yeah, okay. My question is this. How can our hero, President Trump, capture and deport illegal aliens from New York City? The city has declared itself as a safe harbor for illegal aliens. How? And then, of course, he says, thanks, Buddy Weiser. All right. So let's just make one thing abundantly clear. Okay? Immigration and the enforcement of immigration law is the responsibility of and is the sole responsibility of the federal government. Okay. Now, unfortunately, the Constitution does not specifically state immigration. However, it does specifically state that Congress has the sole control over creating naturalization policies. Now, these questions have been asked seriously throughout the course of history. In fact, going all the way back to James Madison had a belief that immigration was key to the survival of the country. And so in his mind, he believed that immigration should have been very, shall we say, loose and relaxed. But that being said, it was never intended in any way, shape, or form to be part of the states. However, because the Constitution doesn't specifically enumerate immigration within its wonderful writings, okay, many states have, over the course of time, starting in the beginning, have tried to put in their own immigration laws. Some states still have immigration laws on their books today. But here's the thing. The Supreme Court, and this is one particular area that the Supreme Court, no matter what decade, what century that they have been in, they have constantly upheld this principle that immigration on its face, and they've actually picked different parts of the Constitution that technically reinforces these things, such as the constitutional principle that the federal government is the only one that can deal with foreign countries, foreign entities, that it is specifically denied to the states, that the states themselves cannot enter into treaties with foreign entities. That's one angle that the Supreme Court has utilized in the past to enforce the fact that immigration law is a responsibility of the federal government. Period. End of story. And this honestly has been consistent throughout the course of our American history. Okay? It's long-standing precedent. You can look, there's a bunch of them there. There's a bunch of cases. But each time the Supreme Court precedent has recognized that Congress has plenary power over immigration, giving it, meaning Congress, almost complete authority to decide whether foreign nationals, aliens under governing statutes and case laws, may enter or remain in the United States. Now, again, like I said, defining where that shows up in the Constitution is a little bit more difficult. I personally think that it's tied into the whole naturalization clause that shows up in Article 1, Section 8. Okay? Now, over time, we have had multiple laws that have shifted and changed and have also granted the president, for an example, have granted the president power to decide who gets to come in to the country or not. So, sorry, had to deal with a bot over on Facebook. But anyway, the point being here is that it is 100% solely and has been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court multiple times that it is 100% and solely a part of the federal government's powers. Now, all of that being said, we do have a little bit of a monkey wrench. So, New York, as an example, California, as an example, Oregon, as an example, Washington, as an example. Now, notice all of these are leftist havens, have all declared themselves in some way, shape, or form, whether it's sanctuary cities or sanctuary states or whatever the case may be. They call themselves these sanctuary places where, you'll be protected. Here's the thing. They are actually violating national law. They are actually violating federal government law by doing this. There have been cases that have gone to the Supreme Court. For an example, the last Trump presidency brought California all the way up to the Supreme Court on its sanctuary rules. Trump tried to challenge those sanctuary rules, and the Supreme Court, unfortunately, declined to hear the case. But here's how this works, and this generally runs into, it's not the actual state that is like literally taking up arms against the federal government to protect, a illegal alien who happens to be within that state. It's not getting to that point, because believe me, at that point, you're starting to look at things like sedition or insurrection or anything of that nature, okay? But what they are doing is they are basically telling things, law enforcement agencies such as the state police or the the city police or whatever, basically telling them to not cooperate with federal authorities in terms of when they get somebody into their jails or whatever, and they identify these criminals, that they don't automatically call up ICE in order to send them off and send them to where they can be deported. And this is how they kind of get around it. Because believe it or not, there is precedent for the states not to do this. They don't have to enforce federal law. Scarily enough, the reason why this came about is because Sheriff Mark Lamb out of Arizona sued the federal government when the oppressive universal background checks first came out. In his mind, because he was a constitutional sheriff, and by the way, he writes he wrote this fantastic book that you can get on the Institute on the Constitution called The Constitutional Sheriff. But because he went to the Supreme Court and won his case against the federal government, basically saying that he doesn't have the money or the time or whatever to do these background checks that the federal government was required in order for these people to purchase firearms, which of course is covered under the Second Amendment, that same ruling applies to this kind of case. Because now, and that's the way it was argued too in a couple of other Supreme Court cases, is it was argued that, hey, if the local law enforcement doesn't have to enforce federal law in this particular case, then why would they have to enforce federal law in the case of immigration? And so this is kind of the loophole that has been presented and upheld here, especially in recent times. So it's not the fact that the state is actually actively blocking the federal government from doing it. It's just, they're just basically saying, well, you can do it, but I'm tying my hands. I'm not going to help you to do it. Now, granted, it's kind of splitting hairs, I'll be honest with you. It's splitting hairs, but that's the nature of the beast. And sometimes you win and sometimes you don't. But here's the thing, though, is that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, okay, and the border czar is probably not going to care about any of that. He's going to just do what he needs to do in order to clean up our immigration laws. So the cities and the states can declare themselves sanctuaries. Basically, all it really means is that they're just not going to turn you over to the federal government should you violate the law in their states and cities. Now, do not be surprised. I'm just looking ahead. Don't be surprised if with this massive deportation effort that that they are going to end up in court being sued, and that the Supreme Court will basically say, yeah, immigration law is all them. It's all federal government. You need to help them out. Don't be surprised with that. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are there, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel. Hit that green follow button so that you get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, before you take off, make sure you hit that thumbs up button or those like buttons, whatever it is, on every single one of my platforms, whether it's Facebook, X, YouTube, or Rumble, because that helps to bring these videos to a larger audience, and I definitely want to grow. This is a weekend. I will not see you tomorrow, but I will see you on Monday, right here on American Perspective at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.